Up on the Riverwind Casino call-in line at 405-329-9000 or text the show on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line at 405-651-3439.
Do it! Just do it!
Now, with Locked In, here's Parker Thune and Grayson Singleton.
Mr. Singleton, I have a question to kick off this Wednesday installment of our program.
I have an answer.
Are you sure?
Oh, I don't. Okay, now I'm not sure.
Does NASCAR still exist? Like, is that going on? Is that still a thing?
My best friend is a big NASCAR guy, so I'm going to say yes, given the unsolicited updates that I get from it.
I never see anything about NASCAR on my Twitter feed, on TV, anywhere.
Were you just thinking about NASCAR in the shower or something?
Well, no, I don't know why it occurred to me, but if you told me that NASCAR had been discontinued effective January 1st, 2025, I probably would have believed you because I haven't heard anything pertaining to the NASCAR world in I don't know how long.
That's fair. Were you ever a NASCAR guy?
I mean, I wouldn't say I was ever a NASCAR guy. We occasionally, because here's the thing. When you grow up in Nebraska without cable TV, and so you're limited to, like, the 4 local network channels.
Right.
You take what you can get, programming-wise. And so on those lazy Sunday afternoons in the summer, there are NASCAR races and not a whole lot else. And so we would watch NASCAR from time to time. I wouldn't say I ever got too terribly invested in it, but feels like that was kind of when NASCAR was at its peak. Like you had some major faces of, and I don't want to call it a sport.
What is it then?
You had major faces of the organization, I suppose. Like Dale Earnhardt Jr. was huge. Jeff Gordon was huge. Jimmy Johnson was huge. I don't know if I could name 3 NASCAR drivers right now. I'm sure I could name 3 NASCAR drivers from like 10 years ago. I have no idea whether they're still racing or not. Kyle from Salisaw on the text line says, nothing cool about watching a car make repetitive left turns, but yes, it still exists.
I'm trying to think, can I name 3?
Sooner Bump says, are we at the point of this relationship that we want to know what PT thinks about in the shower?
I mean, he's referenced things he thinks of in the shower multiple times since I joined the show.
I have some of my most revolutionary thoughts in the shower.
That's why I wanted to know if he just randomly thought about NASCAR.
It's only as weird as you make it, Sooner Bump. It's only as weird as you make it. Yeah, Jimmy Johnson's an OU fan. I don't know whether he has any affiliation with OU. Somebody will have to educate me on that, but yeah, I know he's an OU fan.
I think the only driver I can name right now is Brad Keselowski, if he's still racing.
Is he still racing? I know him. Matter of fact, I remember watching the very first race he ever won because it was that crazy. I think it was Talladega Superspeedway in Alabama where he was racing for the win down the stretch with Carl Edwards.
Mm-hmm. There's another one.
Yeah, and he tapped Carl Edwards' rear bumper, and the car wound up going airborne, flipping, hitting the what do you call it? The catch fence. Hitting the catch fence and skidding down the front stretch. I'm having to recall all of these NASCAR terms that I have never had any reason to use. Skidding down the front stretch in a giant fireball. And as I recall, that led to some major reform as far as the design of the cars that they used in NASCAR. Brian and Bixby says, Jimmy Johnson's wife went to OU. I went to school with her. Okay, there you go.
Michael and Marlowe, racing is 100% a sport. I agree.
Okay, be that as it may, that's not what we're here to discuss. I'm sorry I got us sidetracked right off the bat here. But we are going to discuss OU football and recruiting here over the next hour, and obviously a lot of transfer portal talk. The most natural place to start, Grayson, is, of course, the reality that Oklahoma made the splashiest transfer portal addition, maybe in the portal era, save for John Mateer at the University of Oklahoma. Can you think of a portal addition that OU has made in the portal era outside of Mateer that was this significant? Jaden Ott is an Oklahoma Sooner as of yesterday.
I think outside of John Mateer, he passes. Well, hold on. Are we counting Baker Mayfield, who was a transfer?
No, that wasn't a transfer.
Okay, that was a transfer portal. Okay, that's right. Okay, I thought you were starting transfers here.
Baker Mayfield showed up and lived in Muldrow Tower like the rest of the regular student population for a year before.
Did he really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yes, the story goes. I mean, it was iconic. I was an RA in Adams Center, which no longer stands.
You were
at
an
the
RA?
University of Oklahoma. I was an RA for 1 year.
I would have hated you.
I was the cool RA.
I had a love-hate relationship with RAs.
Listen. I was an RA for a year, never issued a single citation.
Okay, actually,
Not
I might have liked you.
one.
Then.
I was the cool RA.
But getting back to transfers, I think he beats out Deion Burks for most notable transfer in the transfer portal era. And Deion Burks obviously hasn't lived up to what we hope he will live up to in his time at Oklahoma. But I mean, yeah. Do I think it complicates things? Sure. I think it complicates a lot of things in that running back room. But we said this yesterday, and I'll go back to what we said 2 weeks ago. This offense on the perimeter, well, not on the perimeter, in terms of skill position players, doesn't have a whole lot of explosivity about it that we know of so far. Jaden Ott brings that, certainly. So he's a player that could potentially be the most box office on this Oklahoma offense. So, yes, he is the most, at least, prized transfer portal addition in the transfer portal era for Oklahoma, off the top of my head.
CJ Sooner in Florida says Deion Burks and Dasan McCullough would be the only ones that were close. Somebody else brought up Dylan Gabriel. Here's what you have to remember about Dylan Gabriel and his addition via the portal. First off, I think that is up there. Top three certainly has a case for number one as the most impactful transfer portal addition that Oklahoma has ever had. The addition of Dylan Gabriel. But at the time, no one cared. And the reason no one cared was because the announcement that Dylan Gabriel was coming to Oklahoma came like 6 hours on the heels of the news that Caleb Williams was leaving.
Yes.
So the entire Oklahoma fan base was pissed that Caleb Williams was leaving. Dylan Gabriel, okay, I mean, that was in the news cycle for a minute there, sure. Okay, the Sooners got a quarterback. It's one less question, I guess, but the preeminent feeling amongst the fan base at the time was one of disappointment because naturally they did not see Dylan Gabriel in the same light as they saw Caleb Williams.
And rightfully so, I guess. Dominic Williams also was coming up on the text line, too.
Dominic Williams was big time. I think the reason why that addition was so ballyhooed was because it was a bidding war and everybody knew it was a bidding war, and Oklahoma won a bidding war against Texas and Missouri. It felt like you stuck it to those programs. I think that, yes, Dominic Williams is a talented football player, but for a significant contingent of the fan base, it wasn't even as much about the fact that you got Dominic Williams. It was about the fact that you raised a giant middle finger to Texas and Missouri in the process.
And here's why, and Jalen Hurts just came up on the text line, Jim from Arlington, Jalen Hurts, but here's why I say Jaden Ott could be more impactful than even those guys. Because I think when we have this conversation, context matters, backdrop matters, and what is Jaden Ott coming into? He's coming into an offense that was dog water last year for various reasons. The offensive line was terrible, the quarterback play wasn't great, neither was the coaching, and also the fact that they didn't generate explosive plays, a lot of that having to do with the fact that they didn't have big runs last year, save for the main game, which I'm not going to count. So the fact that he's coming in with that as the backdrop, and he's going to be part of this rehabilitation of getting back to what the standard of offensive football is at the University of Oklahoma, I think that's why he can be, by and large, the most impactful transfer in the portal era so far.
Mark in Tonkawa says, what about Eric Gray? Yeah, we talked about him last hour. That was a critical portal addition for Oklahoma that didn't pay off immediately because he sat behind Kennedy Brooks for a year, but then we all saw what Eric Gray was capable of as the feature back in an offense come 2022 when he got the chance to lead the charge in the committee. CD from Hockley with a good question, one that I knew we would face today. Let me get this straight. We'll pay for Jaden Ott, but not for Jonathan Hatton? That is correct, and let me explain to you why. Jonathan Hatton has rushed for 0 yards at the collegiate level. Jaden Ott, has rushed for roughly 2,500, including 1,300 in a single season back in 2023. So, especially from where Jim Nagy stands as Oklahoma's general manager, you're always going to be more willing to pay for production than potential. That's not to say you will not pay for potential, but you will be more willing to pay for production than for potential. Jaden Ott has a resume. Jonathan Hatton does not. And moreover, Jaden Ott pretty immediately projects as a guy that can be a legit difference maker in your offense, your likely RB1, and somebody that if he resembles the player that he was at Cal in 2023 before he was hobbled by that ankle injury last season, he's somebody that could be in contention for an all-conference nod.
But I don't think he will.
Oh boy.
And the reason isn't Oklahoma one. What's DeMarco Murray going to do with all this now? I mean, he's got 3 legit, say what you want about Sawchuk and Barnes. They are legit running backs in the Power 4 conference. So how are those dudes going to be used? How are all 3 of them going to be used? We saw that nobody could get into rhythm last year. Has he learned the error of his ways? Is there a plan for how to utilize all of this skill potential? That remains to be seen. And usually when you have that many guys and a coach who still hasn't really gotten a feel of how to rhythmically dispose of them, then that doesn't usually lead to all conference seasons.
Sooner Soldier got jokes. He said, if Ott comes on and is really good, then that means DeMarco will bench him. That's what the pattern has been.
Oh, here we go.
Minnesota Sooner points out, Ott was first-team all-conference in 2023 over Bucky Irving, who was top 10 in rushing in the NFL next year. Tattoo Baker, tongue-in-cheek, says, can we get Tyler back? Tired of the poke pessimist, it would appear.
I'm sorry, Tattoo Baker.
Wallace accurately points out, if Jalen Hurts would not have come, we would have had a freshman, Spencer Rattler, and would not have made the college football playoff. That's true, Wallace.
Fair.
However, when we're talking about transfer portal additions, I try to limit that conversation to guys that I guess technically Jalen Hurts would have entered the transfer portal, but he was also a graduate transfer. So when I say transfer portal additions, I'm thinking guys that entered the transfer portal because that was their only option for changing institutions. Grad transfers can and always have been able to transfer once, immediately, at no eligibility penalty to any other institution. So Jalen Hurts didn't need the transfer portal to come to Oklahoma, much the same way Kyler Murray, and he was pre-portal.
Right.
But he didn't need the transfer portal to come to Oklahoma. Baker Mayfield didn't need the transfer portal to come to Oklahoma. And those are the 3 easiest, highest impact transfers of the 21st century for Oklahoma, the 3 easiest guys to point to. But trying to limit that portal conversation to guys that actually needed the portal in order to show up at Oklahoma. Ramondre Stevenson was a nomination on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. Similar story there. He was a junior college guy, and I believe that was very slightly pre-portal, so he didn't need the portal in order to show up at OU. Recruiting Boomer says Tyler Guyton turned into a monster. Yep, that was a great one. And Tile Setter Chris asked, can we at least talk Bedlam baseball with Pistol Willie?
I mean, Oklahoma's pretty damn good, and Oklahoma State's really, really bad.
In the sport of baseball.
In the sport of baseball. I am well aware of that.
How many wins do you think Jaden Ott is good for? How does the addition of Jaden Ott affect your projection of Oklahoma's win total, if at all?
I don't know if it's significant.
Okay.
Given how dependent the running back position is on what's in front of you.
Good point.
I don't think that's a position that shifts the win-loss total by so much. I will say this, though. I think he gives you a better chance of winning certain games. I think his impact in certain games will show up in terms of what can shift something. So I'll give it a half. I'll give it half a win. If I were going to speak in betting terms here, that's what I would go. But running backs typically don't shift that in that kind of a way because it's so dependent of a position.
Now, I'm going to recycle a thought from my colleague Brandon Drum that he brought up on our rapid reaction video last night in the immediate aftermath of Ott's commitments. If you rewind to 2024, which program brought in the best quarterback running back duo in last year's transfer portal cycle? It was Ohio State.
Ohio State, Will Howard and Quinshon Judkins. Ohio State won a national championship. Am I here to suggest that that these additions of John Mateer and Jaden Ott make Oklahoma a national championship contender? By no means. But the point therein is that Will Howard and Quinshon Judkins in tandem helped elevate Ohio State to a level that they simply couldn't attain in the years that preceded their arrival. And so Oklahoma, I don't think it's much of a question. Going into 2025, they have landed the top quarterback running back duo of the offseason transfer portal cycle. And that, combined with what you would imagine is improved health across the board for the program, a defense that returns 8 incumbent starters and made some key additions via the portal of their own, all of this adds up to a team that is very quickly eliminating excuses for themselves, Grayson. Ooh.
As we get closer and closer to the 2025 season, any excuses for Oklahoma not to be competitive in the SEC in 2025 are vanishing.
Is there an excuse now? I mean, you've reloaded at offensive line. You've gotten some pretty good transfers there. Your defense, for the most part, is back. You got a new quarterback. You got a new offensive coordinator. In the same vein, you got a new quarterbacks coach as well. Where are the excuses? There is none anymore. Unless you get hit with, the Black Death version of injuries again, then maybe there's a natural one. But right now, no. There is no excuse for why they can't be competitive. Does that mean they have to go 10-2? No. It's a 16-team SEC, but you should be more competitive than you were last year.
I guess the only excuse, and it would be an iffy one, would be the new, right?
Sure.
The growing pains that might come on off. But again, like, you have a quarterback that's run the offensive coordinator system for the last 2 years, so there's a caveat there. Chad, the Loves accountant on the text line, says, Parker using phrases like by no means. My man sounds like Alexander the Great. 402 listener says, what's the point of the text line if y'all are only going to answer the same 10 texters every day? Hey, we don't know your name. That's probably why we don't read your texts. If we knew your name, it'd be a lot easier to spot your texts amidst the onslaught that we get. Let us know your name. We'll add it.
And also, didn't we say that Tyler Guyton has been mentioned on the text line? Unless we didn't.
Yes, that texter has only sent 2 texts.
Ever.
They were both in the last 10 minutes. They sent a text that said, Tyler Guyton is the right answer, and then they sent a text that said, what's the point of the text line if y'all are only going to answer the same 10 texters every day? Let us know your name. That listener is in Wahoo, Nebraska. I love Wahoo.
Where is that?
Oh, you don't know where Wahoo is? No, you don't know where Wahoo is. You're not from there.
I've never been to the state.
Uh-huh. Wahoo is about 20, 30 minutes outside of Omaha. They have an amazing little baseball field that I played a lot on in high school. The most prominent alumnus of Wahoo High, the most prominent ex-resident of Wahoo, Nebraska, is Wahoo Sam Crawford, who is an MLB Hall of Famer and still the sport's all-time leader in career triples. The baseball field is named after him out there. Tucked away next to a rail yard. Awesome. I love Wahoo. Maybe I'll go back. I'm going to be in Nebraska this weekend. Maybe I'll swing back through Wahoo.
Is this Omaha area or Lincoln area?
It's interesting. It's about equidistant from Omaha and Lincoln. You kind of got to go a little out of your way. It's not like halfway between, but It's almost like the 3 points form an equilateral triangle, and you have the same distance from Omaha to Wahoo as you do from Lincoln to Wahoo.
So basically it's a spot where I probably shouldn't end up in. And if I have gone there, it is by accident.
If you're going from major city to major city, I don't see why or how you would go through Wahoo, Nebraska, no.
Fair enough.
If you're just road tripping through central Nebraska, slicing a line through the middle of the state, then you'll probably hit Wahoo. Fun little town. There are a lot of fun little towns in the state of Nebraska. My home state. All right, folks. Keep at it on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. Love the interaction so far. Love some of the thoughts that you guys have brought to the table. We'll hit more of them and continue talking OU football and recruiting. What might be next for Jim Nagy and the staff on the other side. Keep it here on the Ref, the home of Sooner fans.
Hi, folks. This is Larry Knippelmeyer here at Knippelmeyer Chevrolet in Blanchard, USA. Conveniently located just 15 minutes south of Oklahoma City and 10 minutes west of Norman. With all the talk of inflation, market crashes, and tariffs, it's no wonder we're all afraid to make that new vehicle purchase. Now, with that being said, there will probably never be a better time to purchase your new Chevrolet at Knippelmeyer Chevrolet. No price increase or tariffs on our huge selection of in-stock vehicles. Pickups, SUVs, cars, and even Corvettes, all marked down and ready to sell. Interest rates are good, used vehicle trade-ins are high, and rebates and incentives are back on most new Chevrolets. So hop in that old vehicle and come see us at Knippelmeyer Chevrolet in Blanchard, where nobody beats our deal. Or give us a call at 405-485-3333 or catch us on the web at knippelmeyer.com. Chevrolet, together let's drive.
Don't miss out on OKC's hottest entertainment at the Showplace Theater with acts like Boys to Men, April 18th. America, April 26th. Patti LaBelle, May 2nd. And Scotty McCreery, May 10th. Riverwind is OKC's favorite casino experience.
For the professional, it's not enough to just possess knowledge. That's why at GMC, we seek to refine it, to wield its power, to redefine its boundaries, while pushing the limits. And we put this knowledge to the test in every GMC Sierra by engineering each one to outperform your expectations. So you know you're getting precision and durability when you need it most. And that's what makes the GMC Sierra the truck worth knowing. We are professional grade. See your Oklahoma GMC dealers.
Get ready for an unforgettable summer at the Young Family Athletic Center. Our summer day camps and sports leagues are the perfect way for young athletes to stay active, improve their skills, and have a blast. Whether your child is into basketball, volleyball, or pickleball, we've got open gym, leagues, and camps designed for all skill levels. Registration is now open for most summer activities, but space is limited. Don't miss out. Go to YFAC.com and make this summer one to remember. Are you, your family, or company looking for a locally owned and trusted management group? Carlsbad Management Group is an owner, developer, and manager of high-quality apartment communities in Oklahoma. They are a locally owned and operated management company for apartments and self-storage units. They are committed to providing exceptional apartment homes, customer service, and increasing the value of multi-family communities under our management. If you would like a free management quote today, call Carlsbad Management at 405-701-1411 and be part of the Carlsbad family.
How serious is youth vaping? Irreversible lung damage serious. 1 in 10 kids vape serious, which warrants a serious conversation from a serious parental figure like yourself. Not the seriously know-it-all sports dad or the seriously smart podcaster. It requires a serious conversation that is best had by you. No, seriously, the best person to talk to your child about vaping is you. To start the conversation, visit talkaboutvaping.org. Brought to you by the American Lung Association and the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Tanner Mordecai with the San Francisco 49ers, and I'm here to share my experience with the team at Mitchell's Jewelry. They came highly recommended, and my experience could not have been any better. I worked directly with the owner, Newt Mitchell, and he helped me design the perfect ring for my future bride. I was confident I picked the right one with the help from the great people at Mitchell's. Anytime my friends ask for suggestions, I know where to send them, and I'm telling you the same. If you want a great experience and the perfect ring, you can trust the team at Mitchell's Jewelry. Shop with them in Norman or check out their website or socials.
Parker Thune, Grayson, Singleton here with you on Locked In. You're listening to The Ref, the home of Sooner fans. The show brought to you by Dorsey Jones Buick GMC out in El Reno. Fantastic service advisors out there. Low-pressure sales environment where you can purchase one of their ultra-reliable Buicks or GMCs. Get half-price oil changes on Saturdays. So many reasons to head out to Dorsey Jones in El Reno. Saw this on Twitter. Charlie Ward is going to be the new head basketball coach at Florida A&M University. We do not talk about Charlie Ward as being one of the greatest athletes in history. That man won a Heisman Trophy on the gridiron and then played in the NBA for a decade plus.
Yep.
Put some respect on Charlie Ward's name.
Yeah, I mean, that speaks for itself. I don't think that's ever been done.
That aside, Grayson, getting back to the whole Jaden Ott conversation here, what I find most impressive about the whole Ott saga, and look, it was a topic of conversation in the office early this week. It was kind of known behind the scenes that if and when Jaden Ott got in the transfer portal, it was going to be Oklahoma in all likelihood, right? But with a player that good, with a player that talented, you don't feel like you can take anything for granted until the ink is dry on the contract, right?
Yeah, sure.
The ink is dry on the paperwork. At that point, you can take it to the bank. Jaden Ott was in the transfer portal at like 7:30 p.m. on Monday night.
Mm-hmm.
By 6 o'clock Tuesday, he was signed with the Sooners. Everything transpired in under 24 hours. And I brought it up yesterday. I was told Georgia had called and inquired about Jaden Ott. I've been told there were plenty of other programs across the country, naturally, that were very, very interested in bringing in Jaden Ott. But Jim Nagy and Oklahoma made this as open and shut a process as we have ever seen for an Oklahoma edition in the transfer. Even John Mateer, right? John Mateer took, 2 days, 2 full days, almost 3, if I recall correctly? Obviously, everybody knew, right? But North Carolina, at the very least, succeeded with getting on the phone with John Mateer during his OU visit. There was never a point, though, at which anyone on the OU side, no fan, no reporter, nobody that had any sort of vested interest in the situation. There was nobody that at any point had to worry about another school horning in on Oklahoma's action, because it was done like that.
Which, by the way, is this not similar to what coaches do? And I know people hate that comparison, but when you see like a coach steps down to go, and I'm not complaining, I'm not debating the efficacy of this, by the way. I'm just making an observation. When coaches all of a sudden leave right before a bowl game or something, you think they haven't been talking to people before then? You know, those things were done deals before. So it is interesting that now we've essentially done that with players. But it also is interesting that Oklahoma's brought in 2 high-profile players seemingly by that same manner. When they hop in the portal, it's not a bidding war. It's not a recruitment, really. They didn't recruit John Mateer. They didn't recruit Jaden Ott. Them dudes were sold before then. I mean, there was no other way they were going.
True.
Now John Mateer came in lockstep pretty much with Ben Arbuckle. That was your inside source there. But it's this college football thing just gets fascinating and fascinating and fascinating at every turning point. Now to the point where how long was he in the portal? 20 hours?
If that.
Before he signed? I mean, bravo to Jim Nagy and his staff for getting this done quick. Bravo for them for not giving anybody else an opportunity to do that. That deserves immense praise for pulling that off.
Santa John on the text line says, has the OU medical staff signed off on Jaden Ott's injuries? Is he going to be available? I understand. I understand why everybody is so apprehensive about injuries given everything that happened in 2024, not just the quantity of injuries, but the fact that some of those injuries seem to last so much longer than they should have. Some of those rehabs seem to last so much longer than they should have. Complication here, setback there. I get it. But what Jaden Knott was dealing with in 2024 with his ankle is absolutely not something that should have any impact on his availability or explosiveness or on-field potential in 2025. I think the reason why that is even a talking point is just because people are so scarred, understandably, from everything that happened at Oklahoma in 2024 and the injuries that proliferated across the roster. But there's no reason why you should get anything less than 100% of Jaden Knott when he shows up for fall camp in August. Brian and Bixby says best deal is a done deal before anyone hears about it.
Yeah, especially in today's landscape with college sports, man.
Sooner Bump adds, Jim Nagy, recruiter of the month. He has a strong case right now. He has a strong case. And I'm just glad, I don't want to dismiss DeMarco Murray's role in acquiring Jaden Knott. I don't want to dismiss Bill Bedenbaugh's role in acquiring Jake Michaela. But Jim Nagy is the one that quite naturally is going to wind up getting a lot of the credit for whoever Oklahoma reels in this portal cycle. We've barely even talked about the addition of Michaela Grayson because that happened like 3 minutes before Oklahoma announced Ott's signing. Any other day, we're probably talking about that at the top of the show. As it is, we're a half hour in, and we have yet to speak Jake Michaela's name. But let's go there for a second. This was a battle that came down to OU, UCLA, North Carolina, and Syracuse. The Sooners went out for Michaela, the experienced Stanford transfer with 16 career starts to his name. I spoke to a source last night in the building at the Switzer Center that said they regard Jake Michaela as long-term a draftable guy. They think he has the potential, after 2 years at Oklahoma, to hear his name called on draft day. What do you think about the addition of Michaela and how much this improves the bottom line for Oklahoma's offensive line?
I do think, you asked me how much does Jaden Knott shift potential wins. I think Jake Michaela potentially does more of that. Because let's just say Jake Michaela never comes here and Troy Everett gets hurt or somebody in a guard position gets hurt. In your interior offensive line with a shorter quarterback, that could be a major, major problem. Not to mention that you had offensive line injuries last year. But if Jake Michaela doesn't crack the starting five and something happens to a Troy Everett or either of the guards, all of a sudden you've got experience right behind him that will probably be just as good as the guy that beat him out if he's not better once he gets more ingratiated into how the offensive line functions. That can save you from potential losses in a potential loss on the offensive line. So I think Jake Michaela's addition is huge, man. And I've said it the last couple of days we've been on. If you can get this guy in just to have experience depth and not have to go to a sophomore or a freshman in the case of emergency, all of a sudden you're just fine plugging him in against an Alabama. You're just fine plugging him in against an Auburn, against a Tennessee or whatnot. Because you know that he's probably going to be ready for that more so than somebody who would have been a bit younger. So I think it is a disservice that we took half an hour to get to Jake Michaela because he could end up being that important.
Big John from Texas on the text line. We'll get back to Michael in a second. I had to read this one. This was kind of a wild text. Big John from Texas said, would rather have the kid out of Illinois than Ott. He is too small, don't care what anyone says. 205 will not cut it in the SEC schedule. We have got to recruit way bigger backs, 230 plus. 230 plus? You're not finding many running backs these days that are worth putting on the field in a 3-down capacity that are north of 230 pounds. Xavier Robinson isn't even north of 230 pounds at this point. That was his thing. Xavier Robinson's whole thing When he signed with Oklahoma, it was, there's a plus-size back. He played his senior year of high school like 245. Very first thing OU did when he got to town was they cut his weight down. Cut him down the 220, 225 range. Just for kicks, let me read you the measurables on the top 3 rushers in the SEC last year.
Okay.
Top 3 rushers in the SEC. Dylan Sampson, 5'11", 201.
Yeah.
Jarquez Hunter, 5'10", 209. Quintravion Wisner, 6 foot 200.
I'll throw you one in there too. We just mentioned Quinshon Judkins in the last segment. He's 218.
Jaden Ott, folks, 6 feet, 210 pounds.
That'll
play.
He will be just fine.
I am not at all concerned about it. Gunny of Stesman already said, who does he want at running back? Larry Zonka? Apparently
are we trying to get Derrick Henry up here? John Riggins?
Apparently so. But I think you bring up a good point with Michaela, and even predating our conversation on Michaela was something you mentioned, Grayson, which is that to a certain extent, right, a running back is only as good as his offensive line. So the Sooners can bring in Jaden Ott, but if you don't have the big uglies up front to open up the holes for him, he's going to have a really, really tough time making much of an impact in an Oklahoma uniform.
Yep.
It was really, really tough for Oklahoma to run the football in 2024, and that's not because their running backs sucked, although there was some inconsistency there. It was largely because there just wasn't anywhere for them to run.
And also, to that point, too, about the running backs suck. No, they didn't suck, but they also weren't they didn't generate a lot of explosives themselves. I think you and I are reading the exact same text.
You want Devon Mitchell at running back.
but to the point, part of the upside that Jaden Ott brings is that he's also slippery. And he can turn what something would be a gain into something even bigger.
He's really slippery, man. Great as a rusher, great as a receiver, great as a returner as well. We've seen him make an impact in all 3 of those areas for Cal over the course of his collegiate career to date. It's not just about 2023 either. You go back to his freshman season at Cal, his true freshman season, mind you, 1,200 all-purpose yards and freshman All-American distinction.
Mm-hmm.
Again, there is no debate to be had here. The guy can play. And to anybody that just looks at his statistics from last season, sees the 3.3 yards per carry average, whatever it was, 386 rushing yards or whatever he had, and wants to dismiss him as just a guy, Jaden Ott is certainly not just a guy.
No.
We don't know who all is going to be in the portal between now and when the window closes on April 25th. But there is an overwhelming likelihood that when we have a chance to wrap the spring portal cycle, Jaden Ott is regarded as the number 1 running back, and he'll have a case as the number 1 offensive player in the transfer portal,
if not player overall.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'd like him. I like him over Nico. That's just me, though.
By the way, did you see that On3 report from what Urban Meyer said on a podcast?
I think it is absolutely hilarious that On3 is reporting every
part of this
gory detail of the Nico saga. Because Papa Iamaleava tried to go to war with them, and they took it personal. Good on those guys.
That is impressive.
They're reporting the details like you typically wouldn't even report as like a standalone story. Like, yeah, Tulane is pulling out of the Nico sweepstakes. When has it ever been a story that Tulane is no longer interested in this portal quarterback? But
never.
It's news now with Nico, and On3 is capitalizing.
Texter in the 479. Homie wants Packers Eddie Lacy to come to OU.
Fat Eddie. My dude wants the fridge at running back, says a listener in the 405.
Sooner fan in Texas, 230. Please ban that dude.
Gunny said, bringing back Mike Allstott. Yes, man, we need another Mike Allstott. We need another Mike Allstott in the worst way. A Mike Allstott at OU, I'd be all the way down with that. Okay, folks. 405-651-3439 is the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. Thanks to all of you that have been chiming in throughout the show. Again, have absolutely loved the interaction to this point. We will wrap up Locked In on the other side after our final timeout here in the 2 o'clock hour. Keep it right here on the Ref, the home of Sooner fans, and we will return.
Bleed Crimson? Love great Sooner talk? Join the Ref Army by downloading our free app. Toby and TJ, Plank and Josh, Steelman and Thune, and Teddy and Tyler. We have the Sooner experts. The Ref is home to Sooner fans worldwide.
Ever wonder why someone would go to the ends of the earth and leap into the unknown? Maybe a better question is, what are you waiting for? Pacifico is brewed for those who follow their own path. That's living life anchors up.
The Ref is the home of Sooner fans and the home of Sooner Diamond Sports this spring. From Patty's squad in search of another natty.
Lift it deep to left field. No way. No way. Lose your mind, Sooner Nation.
And Skip Sooner's sight set on Omaha.
Throw to first and you can ring it up. 6-4-3.
The Ref has you covered.
Catch Sooner baseball take on the Missouri Tigers in Columbia this Thursday at 7, Friday at 6, and Saturday at 2. And Sunday, catch softball against Mississippi State at 1.
Tired of your current living situation? Now is the best time to make a move. Interest rates are dropping and Home Creations is offering the best financing around with rates as low as 3.625%. This will save you hundreds per month on your brand new Home Creations home. Live like a champion today by calling Holly at 405-364-9999 for full details.
364-9999 Home Creations.
APR 6.508%.
From the gridiron to the hardwood to the diamond, no one covers the Sooners like we do. If it's Sooner Sports, we have you covered 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. This is the home of Sooner fans.
What is a good neighbor? It's someone nearby who helps make your life a little easier. I'm State Farm Agent Julia Chu, and my team and I take time to understand your insurance and financial needs. So whether you're preparing for retirement or in need of auto, home, life, or business insurance, get the kind of help you'd expect from a good neighbor. Visit the Julia Chu Agency or call 329-3311. Come visit at our new location, 701 Wall Street, Norman.
Exciting news for car buyers in Norman and surrounding areas. Sooner Kia of Norman is under new management with new construction coming soon. At Sooner Kia, they believe that every customer deserves excellent service and expert knowledge about their incredible Kia models. Whether you're interested in the sleek K5, the versatile Sportage, or the eco-friendly EV9 or EV6, they've got you covered. Join the Sooner Kia family today and discover how they're making car buying in Norman and OKC easier and more enjoyable than ever. Visit SoonerKia.com, where great deals and exceptional service meet.
Coach Stoops here for Van Hoos Fence. If you want to work with the best local fence company and get championship service, contact my friend Mark and the Van Hoos Fence team. Van Hoos Fence gives each customer the most professional craftsmanship and competitive pricing in Oklahoma. From wood to chain link to vinyl to metal fences, the Van Hoos Fence team does it all. Contact the Fencing All-Americans at Van Hoos Fence, 405-735-1167 or vhfence.com.
Get hurt in the game? We tough it out. Feel exhausted? We push on. Feeling down? We pull ourselves up by the bootstraps. But there are times when bootstraps aren't enough. When stress gets to us and we need to talk to someone about what we're really going through. So we're going to reach out because sometimes mental health is not a one-person job. Visit loveyourmindtoday.org. That's loveyourmindtoday.org. Brought to you by the Huntsman Mental Health Institute and the Ad Council.
How serious is youth vaping? Irreversible lung damage serious. 1 in 10 kids vape serious, which warrants a serious conversation from a serious parental figure like yourself. Not the seriously know-it-all sports dad or the seriously smart podcaster. It requires a serious conversation that is best had by you. No, seriously, the best person to talk to your child about vaping is you. To start the conversation, visit talkaboutvaping.org. Brought to you by the American Lung Association and the Ad Council.
Oh, Big Chris on the text line said, man, locked in is just not long enough. It needs to be longer than an hour. Well, Big Chris, you can take that up with our bosses, but I will say this. I love that our show is an hour long. I love the pace at which we are able to roll along. It would be a struggle year-round to fill 2 full hours with recruiting content, or certainly any more than that. But we get an hour with you guys every single day, specifically devoted to OU football and recruiting, and boy, do we have some fun with it. Now, Grayson, I noticed this. just scrolling through social media and putting the pieces together. And I don't mean to pile on, Cal. Maybe some of y'all really want to pile on Cal, stupid liberals out there on the West Coast. But the University of California at Berkeley, in the last 48 hours, Grayson, has lost 5 of their 6 scholarship running backs to the transfer portal.
I saw this.
Jaden Ott, gone. Byron Cardwell, gone. Justin Williams-Thomas, gone. Kadarius Callaway, gone. Most recently, Javian Thomas, about an hour ago, gone. As it stands, the only scholarship running back on the roster at the University of California at Berkeley is an incoming true freshman named Anthony Leak. That is it.
That's a problem.
Folks, this is where you thank your lucky stars that you're an Oklahoma football fan and you get to root for one of the programs that has resources and tradition in college football. Because can you imagine being a Cal fan right now? Let me draw the parallel for you. You're an Oklahoma football fan, and the only running back right now that you have on the roster is Torrey Blaylock. Everyone else has left. Gavin Sawchuk, gone. Javonte Barnes, gone. Taylor Tatum, gone. Jaden Ott, gone. Xavier Robinson, gone. You have Torrey Blaylock, and that's your only guy heading into the 2025 season. You would be beside yourself. And I imagine that is exactly the case for many Cal football fans right now.
Also the case of West Virginia fans, too. You see their mass exodus recently?
How much? Okay, my question is, and I don't know. I would have to look into it further to get a definitive answer, but like how much of that is by design? How much of that is processing on the part of Rich Rodriguez?
That's true, especially with a new coach coming in, too. You have to factor that in. But if you're Cal, here's what works against Cal. They're in the ACC now. That's a hard sell. You're
going to come here and we're going to fly
and
2,500
we're gonna fly
miles
all the way to Miami.
We're going to fly 2,500 miles for every road game.
That is an insane ask to people. By the way, you can do that if you're Oregon and say, hey, we might have to go play some games in Happy Valley, or we might have to go play some games, in Maryland or Columbus, something like that. You're Oregon. You can sell that. These are not the days of Aaron Rodgers at Cal. Those days are long past. Cal hasn't been a functional football program in Lord knows how long. And you're saying, hey, guys, let's get up for a game in Durham, North Carolina. That's a tough sell.
Crazy thing is, Cal had a decent year last year.
Did they? Oh, that's right, they did.
They beat Florida State, which seemed a lot more significant at the time than it actually wound up being. Or no, wait, they lost to Florida State. They beat them or did they lose? I genuinely can't remember. I think they lost that game.
Give me a second.
But they won a couple games early in the season that were kind of like they should have beaten Miami.
Yes.
They led Miami by 17 points in the fourth quarter? And it took a torrid Cam Ward comeback effort for Cal to lose that game. Blake confirming they did lose to Florida State. That's what I thought. I think the final score of that game was something like 14-9. Ugly game. Ugly game that Florida State wound up winning for one of their 2 wins last season. But Cal had a decent year last year. They have a former Sooner on the roster in Josiah Wagner. The University of California at Berkeley, in the landscape of college football, they are swimming upstream. As are a lot of lower down P4 programs.
Cal was 6-7 last year.
Which for Cal standards, I feel like you'll take that, right?
Which makes it even.
Like Aaron Rodgers,
makes it even more worse sell.
Aaron Rodgers and Marshawn Lynch ain't walking through that door.
I Bleed Crimson has sent this text 3 times and in all caps, so I feel compulsed to read this. And this right there is the reason college football is being ruined by paying athletes. No. Cal going to the ACC, if that's what you're referring to, had nothing to do with paying athletes. It had everything to do with the horrible leadership of the Pac-12.
Yes.
And that they couldn't get a media rights deal. That's why the Pac-12 broke up. Because most of the money and revenue comes from TV deals.
Bring back the Pac-12.
I would love to
resurrect the Pac-12.
I would love to bring back the Pac-12, but they couldn't get they were the only conference that couldn't get a media rights deal. They brought that on themselves.
Brian and Bixby says, Cal's NIL money is all going to travel expenses. They've got to be astronomical, man.
Good Lord.
Cal and Stan, because, like, keep in mind, it's not just travel for football. It's travel for every one of your school-sanctioned sports.
Mm-hmm.
And you're having to fly all of your athletes and staff 2,000 miles plus for most every road game, other than, well, Stanford if you're Cal or Cal if you're Stanford. That's the only ACC game. SMU's a shorter trip.
Unless you go to Dallas.
But short of that, man, ugh, crazy times. Okay. Oklahoma has their first 2 portal additions of the spring cycle. Jaden Ott, Jake Michaela, within minutes of each other yesterday. Now the focus shifts to what is ahead, and there is one name. There's one name that has really come into focus at the wide receiver position as Oklahoma looks to add at least one more scholarship body. That name is not Trajan Bridges. It is not Keon Brown, although Oklahoma has established contact with both of those guys, and we've discussed that in past shows. But the name that has really come into focus today, Grayson, is Xavier Lloyd of Illinois State. This is a kid that is originally from Blue Springs, Missouri. He started off his collegiate career at Kansas State, didn't do a whole heck of a lot there, went to Illinois State, and this past season had 912 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns. Big-bodied receiver, 6'3", good ball skills. He can run. There's a lot to like. My good friend Alan True at 24/7 Sports has reported that Missouri and Louisville, among others, have also been in contact with Xavier Lloyd. But the word this morning when I woke up was, yeah, Oklahoma's got this deal close to done with Lloyd. Now, ever since, feels like there's been a little bit of a walking back of that level of confidence, and that's largely because, as I understand it right now, there are some budgetary hurdles that have to be cleared, i.e. not necessarily that Oklahoma has to go find the money, but that Oklahoma has to decide, okay, are we willing to pay this price for Xavier Lloyd and potentially reallocate money from other position groups on our roster to wide receiver? Because acquiring Xavier Lloyd is going to come at a cost, and as I understand it, the cost would put Oklahoma beyond their budget, their current budgetary constraints at wide receiver specifically. And so there's either going to have to be some finagling done there, or Oklahoma's just going to have to find a cheaper option. I don't know which of the two it's going to be, but those are the two options.
And that right there is what makes this fun. Is that you're gonna have to figure this out, because at some point the chickens come home to roost. And you just got Jake Michael out of the portal. You just got the number 1 running back out of the spring portal. In the winter portal season, you got the number 1 quarterback in the portal, as many would think. You got a right tackle. You got a few 4 transfer wide receivers. One of them now hurt, by the way. You had to pay money for them. You got Marvin Jones Jr. from Florida State. What does this all come down to? Eventually, there's going to be a guy that you're like, yeah, we could really use him too. He's going to be great. You've priced yourself out. You've priced yourself out because of all the other additions you've made. And that right there is what's making college football very similar to the NFL now. And it makes these kinds of discussions really, really fun. Because at some point, and I was thinking about this morning, They still might want to add another linebacker. They still might want to add another corner, and they probably need another receiver. I was thinking of this morning. That's 3 right there. You're not operating with unlimited money, even though the Broklahoma nickname seems to have worn off a little bit. At some point, this was going to happen.
I was told that going into the spring portal cycle, Oklahoma had about $2 million to commit to transfers.
Okay.
About $2 million. Now, you would have to assume, and I don't know exact numbers yet, but you would have to assume that Jaden Ott and Jake Michaela make up somewhere in the neighborhood of half that, if not more.
Yes.
Running back, interior offensive lineman, those are 2 pretty costly positions. So, just assume you have $1 million to spend. Need to add a cornerback? Need to add a receiver, need to add a tight end. You got to start being real discreet with how you spend that money and how you allocate those funds.
Persnickety? Is that the word you said?
Persnickety. There you go.
There we go.
On that note, folks, it's a wrap on this Wednesday installment of Locked In. We will be back again tomorrow, same time, same place. Until then, for Grayson Singleton, I am Parker Thune. Teddy and Tyler have The Rush coming up next. Everybody take it easy. We'll talk to you.